Calibrate Sunshine. So thank you. We're good to go. First item of business is the approval of the October 26, 2017 meeting minutes. You have those in front of you. You have a motion to accept them. Commissioner Ellis on the motion, Commissioner Brennheiser on the second. Any discussion of the minutes of October? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the minutes as published, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Thank you. Motion carries. Brooke Dewar, I'll call on you, please walk us through the adjudication.
Sure. Okay. This morning, Commissioners are aware we had a hearing on a couple of matters that were filed on behalf of St. Horseman. We convened the hearing at about 9:30ish, and that's what caused us to be so late here. In any event, we have concluded and closed the record in that particular hearing. Commissioners have deliberated in executive session, and at this point I will read the text of an order and ask if we have a motion to adopt that order. And I'm going to, first of all, just list the two matters so that everybody's familiar and understands what we're talking about. First, there was a motion to quash and or limit subpoena ducis tecum that was filed on behalf of the following licensees: Juan Carlos Guerrero, Silvio L. Martin, Marcos Zelueta, MZ Racing Partnership, Amber Lynn Schrank, Sean E. Mitchell, Happy Got Lucky Stable. The second matter is a group of appeals from suspensions on behalf of the following: Juan Carlos Guerrero, Silvio L. Martin, Marcos Zuleta, MZ Racing Partnership, MZ Racing Partnership Stable, Amber Lynn Schrank, and Sean E. Mitchell, and Happy Got Lucky Stable. And the order to be adopted is now this 29th day of November 2017. On the record created in the hearing in this matter, on the motion to quash and the appeals of suspensions, the motion is denied and the appeal of suspensions is denied and the suspensions are upheld. Do we have a motion to adopt that order?
We have a motion. Commissioner Jones on the motion. Do we have a second to the motion, please? Commissioner Rogers on the second. Discussion on the order. Seeing none, hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the order on both the motion to quash as well as the appeals of suspension, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Abstain.
And do we have abstentions? And do we have any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Dr. Sweet, we know you won't...
Yeah, oh yeah, and also a written adjudication will follow within 15 days of today's date. And by the way, just so the record's clear, in case it wasn't clear, Commissioner Lark and Commissioner Allison stayed, correct? Just want to get
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
And motion carries, okay.
For the record, we are abstaining for the record because both of us were not here for the full hearing. Okay.
If I may say one thing, I think you understand this, Mr. Dewar, that there is a stay in place.
Mr. Pincus, you have to use a microphone.
There is a stay in place from Commonwealth Court that continues despite your ruling, which allows us time to appeal it back to Commonwealth Court, and thus you must give a reasonable time for us to do that from the time you actually enter an official determination.
Correct, yes. Understood.
And that they be allowed to continue to participate during that period of time.
Okay, thank you. All right, picking up with the regular agenda under the introductory matters, Racing Fund financial report for October. Tracy, please. Welcome. Good to see you. Yeah, you have to speak right into this microphone.
Okay. Good afternoon, Secretary and Commissioners. Let me first of all start out with the State Racing Fund financial statement. Beginning cash balance was $4.1 million. We had revenue of $880,000. expenditures of $1.1 million, leaving an ending cash balance of $3.9 million. Moving on to the Horse Commission financial statement. There were some modifications made at the request of the last meeting to add a budget line. One of the things that we did when we added the budget line was we put a percentage down below. The budget is for the year, and you're only seeing year-to-date through October 31st. So again, for the month of October, there was revenue of $880,000, personnel expenditures of $437,000, and operating at $59,000, total expenditures being $497,000. For the racehorse testing, the Racehorse Development Fund transfers started in November. There was a catch-up payment for the prior weeks since July 1st. So you'll see that in the November statement. So there is no revenue in the month of October. Personnel expenditures of $446,000, operating of $117,000, bringing total expenditures to $563,000.
Excuse me, can I ask a question?
Sure can.
Did we ever resolve how much we're taking out of the, remember was that question of the 8 million and the 10 million?
It's the $8 million.
You're only taking the 8 million?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
They're placing the other $2 million in budgetary reserve in the Racehorse Development Fund. So it's staying in the fund, it's not transferring out. They just put that budgetary reserve on. It's just it's something they do.
Now you're confusing me. So it doesn't go to persons?
It does not get distributed. Right.
Not taking it doesn't mean that it's available for persons.
It will, no, it remains in the account to the end of the year. And then it becomes freed up. It's just how they do it budgetarily wise, because the actual legislation called for the 10 million. They're not taking the 10 million out, they're taking the 8 million, but that other 2 million will remain in budgetary reserve within the account. And they release that at the end of the year. You get it, it stays in the account, it's just that right now you couldn't.
Commissioner, I appreciate you making that comment. Will they get it because of savings within the 50/50, or will we get it?
No, it stays in the Racehorse Development Fund, it never leaves the Racehorse Development Fund.
That doesn't sound to me like it's keep making the money available for persons. I'm afraid what will happen a year from now with that. So,
It actually gets released at
If
the
you
end.
only need 8 million, why they're holding 2 extra million? I don't know.
Because the legislation had in the 10 million.
Yeah, but that was.
And they can't go back and change that. So what they did to work with this, they're not taking it all out, they're taking the 8 million out. The 2 million is just in budgetary reserve, which means it's sitting there. Instead of being in your checking account, they put it in a saving account, it's still yours.
I was trying to sleep better at night, and I should have.
You should be sleeping better at night. They're not taking it. Nobody can touch it. It's there and it's within
No,
reserve.
the horseman can't touch it, that's my problem, but I understand. The horseman can't touch it either, you can't use it for persons. Eventually, they can.
Yeah, you can. Come the end of the year. We're already almost in December. We're good. It's not being touched by anybody. Racehorse promotion, there was only one expenditure, which was for advertising during the month of October, for $13,000. Fair administration, you can see there was a large reversal there. The remaining reversal is to happen in November. So I would expect at the end of November, you're going to see all these balances become zero, and the transfer of those expenditures will be made out of the commission. Comparative financial statements, you can look down through those and let me know if there's any questions, if you'd like to ask for any more details. We're almost at the point, and I think you can see that we're, any of the accrual adjustments that were made, it's balancing out now to the time of the year that you can really look at comparative information. And then again, the 3 restricted accounts follow. Tom, were you discussing any of the additional items that were requested, or is that the detail?
There were three additional items. There were three additional items requested. I believe it was Commissioner DeBunda on behalf of the commission requested distribution to the commissioners of shared services IT, and admin billing. Those were distributed to the commissioners. I guess I would turn it back to Commissioner DeBunda. Do you have any questions for us?
I do, but given the timing, I'd like to ask if I could postpone my comments to the next meeting.
Sure, that's fine. That's fine. I think you also have the ability to put them in writing, doesn't he? Back to you, and then we can answer them out later.
I can do that also.
You want to do that?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, Tracy, thank you. So we have a motion to accept the October financial reports as presented. Commissioner Ellis on the motion, Commissioner Lark on the second. Discussion on the financial report as presented. Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the report, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, Tracy. Dr. Robinson, petrol update.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and Secretary Redding. I've been asked to give a brief summary of the many improvements that have been happened at the laboratory over the last few years since I became acting director in April of 2014. One of the first things that I did was to review all of the processes and procedures in place and to make some changes where necessary to make sure that we were meeting the racing industry standards for drug testing. A key piece of that was the development of a plan to replace the broken and outdated equipment at the laboratory. When I assumed responsibility for the laboratory, there were 6 systems that needed to be replaced. And through working with the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, they invested $3 million to replace all 6 of those systems in the fall of 2015. This was a huge help to us at the laboratory. It was a much needed improvement. In addition, an ICP-MS was donated by the PHHA and the MSOA and was installed in January of 2016 to enable us to meet the cobalt testing needs that became apparent during that time frame. For all of these instruments, we had to rapidly develop new methods and validate those methods so that we could be doing the work that you depended on us to do. And in 2016, in September 2016, I then proposed a plan to the PDA administration for ensuring that these instruments are replaced on a regular basis, and that way we would not end up in a situation where we all of a sudden need a large financial commitment to improve the equipment at the laboratory. And so at the September Commission meeting of this year, you approved the first of those purchases to try and replace the system yearly in order for us to keep up with replacing these systems as they meet the end of their life expectancy. So that plan will ensure that in the future we won't end up in that situation again. The second critical piece of this was to build a successful research and forensics team. At the time that I became acting director, we had an excellent research team in place doing exceptional work and developing a lot of really good new tests. However, we did not have enough staff to be able to perform all of those tests as part of the day-to-day drug testing. So again, with PDA's support, I was able to begin hiring personnel to ensure that we had the people that we needed in order to perform the testing that is required to meet the industry standards. And so I'm very proud of the team that I've built. Most of the individuals in the laboratory now perform drug testing on a daily basis. And those that do research do so predominantly in the winter months when racing slows down. So that during the summer months we have everybody helping with the drug testing, and during the winter months is when we're able to then accomplish the much needed research. This has made us both economical and strong, and I would like to point out that the Horse Racing in Pennsylvania report that came out in, earlier this year, in end of February of 2017, demonstrated that this program costs less than comparable programs in other racing jurisdictions that also do research and drug testing for a similar or even a larger number of samples. Smaller number of samples, excuse me. And then the third piece that I wanted to highlight was the acquisition and maintenance of accreditation to the Racing Medication and Testing Consortium's accreditation program, in addition to our American Association for Laboratory Accreditation. So Petrol was one of the very first equine drug testing laboratories to pursue and acquire A2LA accreditation, and has maintained that accreditation since 1996. And what this means is that Petrol has appropriately developed and implemented standard operating procedures for the work that is being performed. The RMTC accreditation additionally ensures that Petrol is meeting the racing industry standards for drug testing. And our initial interim accreditation required completion of a 200-plus page document, which was completed by our quality assurance officer, Deb Sonner, and also the successful completion of proficiency testing, which means that we receive 10 samples and we have to successfully identify the drugs contained within those samples. Full accreditation also required an on-site inspection, and we obtained interim accreditation in August of 2014. We then had our inspection, and then after passing 2 subsequent proficiency sets, we were able to obtain full accreditation in September of 2015. Maintenance of the RMTC accreditation requires submission of the Petrol scope of accreditation from A2LA, reaffirmation of the accreditation by A2LA to ISO 17025 standards, submission of the A2LA on-site assessment reports, and many other steps that are involved in maintaining this accreditation. And all of that ensures that both the quality of the work and the quantity of the work that we're doing is in line with the racing industry drug testing standards. In 2016, we analyzed 31,729 samples, and a total of 412,515 tests were performed on those samples. And I'd like to point out that a single test can also test for multiple drugs. In addition to the post-race plasma and urine samples, there were 2,177 research samples analyzed, 236 fair and farm show samples analyzed, 87 tissue samples, 48 proficiency samples, and 17 split samples analyzed. There were 20 new analytical methods developed and validated in 2016, and I will provide a summary for 2017 in January of 2018. So all in all, just to say that the laboratory, I believe, is doing very well, and we are meeting or exceeding the needs of the drug testing industry in Pennsylvania. From a research perspective, we've had 1 manuscript published so far in 2017. We have 4 others that are undergoing peer review at various scientific journals. We have 14 manuscripts in preparation, and there are currently 20 unique research projects that are progressing as well. That is my report.
So thank you. Questions? Commissioner Jones?
When we get to situations where a new drug is being used around the country, but we're not sure what it is, and we probably don't have a test for it, tell me what the procedure is that you go through from that point forward to getting into the program and be effective in testing for it. Something that we don't know what it is, but we know somebody's used it.
So that's a very good question. Some of that I would like to keep proprietary. You know, we do our best with the intel and resources that we have to try and find out what is being used and implement it in our testing program as soon as possible. I think that is the best answer I can give you at this time.
Well, the intel comes from the backstretch of the racetrack, comes from, tell me what the sources are, because I'd like to think that we would be able to be helpful, and all these people out here would like to be able to be helpful.
Commissioner Johnson, let me try to help a little bit. What transpires without giving trade secrets away? if word comes from the racing industry, the stakeholders, comes back to Brett or myself, find there's certain things going on, we end up calling a meeting with Mary. We try to identify certain things, and then we designate, there's certain flexibility within her research programs to move to different places. So we try to ferret that out with the help of our shareholders out here, and we formulate a test, or Mary and the staff works to get a test. So it's a process that they're not on an island by themselves. She works very closely with not only Brett and I, but the staff at each of the racetracks, plus the horsemen. Todd's not here today. He's one of the biggest proponents of this from Penn National.
We just need everybody here to know that they can be an important part of this whole process by you may not be able to identify what's being used, but if something is being used, you could be sure you need to trigger the imagination of these guys here to start working on it, because it can be done.
I mean, I think it's fair for me to say, and completely in line for me to share, that I do get tips from outside the commission as well, from practicing veterinarians, from other trainers. I mean, there are people who will reach out. We keep that confidential and do not share, that information as to who's providing those tips. We will always accept bottles of things. If there's something that someone is using, you can certainly share that with the commission staff, and they will get it to us and get that vial to us. It is certainly, I would like to mirror your sentiment, that is, everybody can help with this problem. It's not just us trying to figure it out. And I work very closely with lab directors across the country as well, and even internationally, to try and to learn what is out there and what is being used, so that we can make sure that we implement the appropriate tests as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, my takeaway is you have the capacity and the competence within the system now to do that, right? I mean, the accreditation, the forensic team that you've built, the equipment, right? There's no reason that you can't
Absolutely.
satisfy sort of the inquiry of what this drug is, or the up-and-coming drugs, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Other questions, comments?
Yes, Dr. Robbins, Dr. Robbins has one question. You mentioned, how many tests did you say they've done now in the past year?
In 2016, there were 412,515.
The next part of that, my question is, how many of those turned up positives?
It's approximately 0.4%.
Is that an improvement, or
It's holding steady.
compared to, I just think that this may be something we, as the commission, want to get out, that whatever we're doing, all these issues that have been raised about integrity and testing, I think it's something that we should supply through Ashley and to the commission, and I think we should think about getting out press about what we're doing and what the results have been. I think it would be a good thing for the commission, Mr. Chairman.
And I'd like to point out, those numbers are tracked by the AORC, the Association of Official Racing Chemists, as well as by the RSI, Association of Racing Commissioners International. So they have year-to-year data on those numbers.
Thank you, Dr.
So what's our status with other states then?
I believe we're comparable to other states. I haven't looked at last year, though.
If you would, South
I would like to, I think that's a good question. I would like to know at some future date how we do compare. It's nice to be, as they've said, an efficient cost thing, but also be nice of what kind of results we're getting. I think it'd be nice to see that.
Very good.
Publicize it and publicize it.
Okay, other questions or comments for Dr. Robbins? Just a note of thanks. I mean, I really appreciate, on behalf of the commission, your good work and leadership, the team you've built, the confidence we have in you and the work. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, excellent, thanks. Okay, new business administrative actions, the 2018 commission meeting schedule. Brett, would you review, please?
Yeah, commissioners, in your packages, you'll have a proposed meeting schedule. I think it's under B1. I know the agenda or the packets have been shifted around a little bit, but mine was C3. But proposed meeting schedule for 2018, it holds true to hold all meetings here at Harrisburg per your request of a couple months ago. We need to start booking rooms, reserving rooms for 2018. So, Mr. Chairman, I guess we're looking for approval of the calendar year meeting schedule, or at least a portion of it.
Okay, you have the schedule in front of you. Discussion of the 2018 commission meeting dates.
I just have one request. In the November meeting, can you provide parking for the commission?
But we thought we were providing a real service, getting the Christmas shopping while you're here. It's just not enough, right?
So it would be nice for that meeting if you would provide some place we could park.
Okay, yeah. Duly noted. Okay, do we have a motion to accept the slate of
So moved.
2018 dates, Commissioner Lark on the motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner DeBundo on the second. Any discussion of meeting dates for 2018? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, Thoroughbred Breeders Budget Review. Brian, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. You have in your packets a copy of the 2017 budget and where we are as far as an estimate to that budget and the new 2018 operating budget. You also have a memorandum that was sent, and basically we receive reimbursement from the Commission two ways. They are fund-related expenses reimbursed at 95% and fund-related expenses reimbursed at 100%. And then there are non-fund related expenses which we pay for ourselves. The annual awards banquet, the annual meeting, trophies, those items, lobbying, those items are not submitted for reimbursement. On the second page, you'll see that it looks like we are going to come in approximately $14,000 below what was budgeted for 2017. And the 2018 operating budget proposal takes into consideration the following items that's page 2 of the memorandum. The 2018 proposed budget reflects an increase of $85,527, or approximately 10.02%, more than the 17's approved budget. Over on page 3 of the memorandum, you will see the areas of increase. Personnel costs will increase by approximately $50,000 from the 2017 budget. This is due to salary increases, hiring of a bookkeeper, part-time bookkeeper, health insurance increase of approximately 15%, and pension benefits. There's no increase in the pension benefits, but one of our employees is now eligible to receive those pension benefits. Office expenses will increase $21,161, primarily allocated to expansion of the current office and a new phone system, which we are way overdue for. Professional fees and miscellaneous items remain the same. So the overall increase in indirectly related funds is $71,000, or 10.92%. Any questions on the indirectly related fund expenses? By the way, this budget was approved by the board 2 weeks ago, and went in front of the Breeders' Fund Advisory Committee, of which Mr. Jones, Commissioner Jones, is the chair, and was unanimously approved last week. So any questions on the indirectly related fund expenses? Questions? Okay. The second page of the actual budget itself is directly related expenses. Professional subscriptions will increase approximately $1,200 additionally to cover projected costs for online registration, which is our hope. We will complete that this year. Advertising and promotion budget will remain exactly the same as it was last year, taking into consideration that we will still be receiving the money from the commission marketing dollars. We want to make sure that we continue our outreach across the United States. The office administration and capital expenditures will be increased a total of $30,800 to cover additional computer supplies. We need a couple of computers, we need a couple of printers, and some regular supplies, and website costs as we move to online registration. So the increase in computer supplies, I'm sorry, I said an increase of $30,800. It's increased to a total of $30,800. The increase is $6,800 for the computer supplies. And the miscellaneous items will increase by $10,000. They are an additional travel cost to be used to support industry events like EquestriaCon. We're now a member of, PHBA is now a member of TOBA, so we'll be going to TOBA for their annual presentation of the top breeders, and we'll continue to support our retirement programs in thoroughbred communities. So the overall change in directly related expense section is $18,000 or 7.65%. Any questions on those? Okay, over on the last page, the budget for 2017 was $853,678. The new budget for 2018 is $939,205. Again, an increase of $85,527 in those areas we just reviewed, for an increase of about 10.02%. The total percentage of the funds is about 4.77%. We usually try to keep that within an approximate 5% amount. Any questions?
Questions or comments? Yes, Commissioner.
The difference in the budget and the 21 million too, is that 2.2 million?
Right, 2.2 million we added on to today.
What's happening with that money?
The 2.2 million, the 700,000 of it was distributed between the 3 racetracks according to how it was brought in, the percentage of how it was brought in from the Racehorse Development Fund. At Parks and Presque, we're using that to pay for owner bonus and partial owner bonus and restricted races. At Parks, we're using that money along with a few extra dollars to pay for restricted races in December, which are being run.
But it's understood that you'll have a shortfall the following year, or could have, at least you could have a shortfall the following year because of that?
If you mean not receiving that amount or receiving less than that amount, yes.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, anything else, Brian? So what is the pleasure of the commission? Do we approve the both the 2017 sort of to date and then the budget for 2018 as requested?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if it was this meeting or since you just
No,
received
right now you can do it.
Okay. All right. Okay, so you've heard the discussion. Motion, Commissioner Jones.
Second.
And Commissioner DeBunda on the second. Discussion of any of the report that Brian's provided for the 2017 as well as 2018 budget. Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the report and budget as proposed, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay. Brett, schedule, simulcast, et cetera.
Yeah, under B3, normal monthly business, section A is to approve the simulcast calendars for the three harness facilities, B for the thoroughbred facilities, and then C would be the yearly operational approval for all 6 pari-mutuel tracks. And that consists of the application for live race dates, their officials, takeout rates, wagering format, and the simulcast in and out. So, Mr. Chairman, we'll be looking for one motion to approve A through C.
Okay, we have a motion as such. Commissioner Redheiser, one motion, Commissioner Martin, second. Discussion?
Second.
Yep, we've got both motion and second. Comments, questions?
No question.
Okay, hearing none, those in favor of accepting the motion, again, that includes A, B, and C on the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, thanks. George, anything on ratifications? Nothing listed. So we're okay. All right, licensing and adjudication, George.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, as you know, the Commission issued a published notice regarding the last available harness racetrack license application procedure, in which last night, November 28th, at 4 o'clock, was the deadline for any submission of applications. No applications were submitted, received. We even checked again today, make sure nothing was sent by next day mail. No application has been received.
Any comments? Commissioner Redheiser.
So what happens now?
Right now, nothing. That'll be, as we've been here before. Last time we were here when there was no application submitted, the Commission decided to reopen and give another shot. My humble recommendation is that we wait to see what's going on, especially in light of the new gaming legislation with all these new different configurations. That could be why we didn't receive anything, maybe not. At some point in time, maybe may be able to come to you with a final recommendation, perhaps next month, what have you, for you all to decide what you want to do. Basically, you don't have to do anything right now. Just because that license is there doesn't mean that you have to issue it right now. There are no applications. You could reopen it again, but given the fact that we've had 2 opportunities with no submissions, but my recommendation is let's hold off until at least next month, have you think about where you'd like to go with this, if anywhere at all. Would that be okay?
Yeah, thank you. Further questions or comments? Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item is the license racing entity renewals for the electronic wagering petitions for all of the existing racetracks that we have in the Commonwealth. If I may, Commissioners, I'd like to do this, instead of reading all 6 orders, I will just list the name, the particular docket number, and read the order once for you all to approve. With respect to Parks Electronic Wagering application, petition rather, we have, it's docketed 2017-15. Penn National is docketed 2017-6. Presque Isle Downs is docketed 2017-14. The Meadows is docketed 2017-17. Mohegan Sun at Pocono is 2017-16. Harris, Philadelphia is docketed at 2017-18. Just so you understand, this is for this upcoming 2018 year. And this would be the proposed order for your approval. And now this 29th day of November 2017, pursuant to sections 9351B and 9353 of Act 114, known as the Racehorse Industry Reform Act, the above licensed racing entity is seeking to renew its previously issued annual license to engage in electronic wagering under the jurisdiction and statutory authority of the Commission. In accordance with the statutory authority of the Act, the Commission's Director of Licensing, its bureaus of standardbred and thoroughbred horse racing, and the Office of Chief Counsel have received the electronic wagering petition, the renewal app, supporting documentation, and applicable renewal license fee under 9352 4I. The Commission staff has completed the documentary review and evaluation necessary to make a final determination that the above renewal applications is consistent with the public interest and the best interest of racing in general. In addition to the enumerated conditions, rights, and duties of licensure set forth in the Act, the Commission hereby directs that the licensed racing entity shall promptly notify the Commission of any material changes or modifications to the submitted renewal application and supporting documentation. I would ask that be as a motion.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Commissioner Ellis on the motion, Commissioner Rogers on the second. Discussion of this order of licensing the racing entities and renewal in the electronic wager petition for 2018. Discussion on that motion. Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. The next item, no, sorry. Oh, you already did the adjudication, that's right. Thank you, Mike. So the next item is the pending appeals and administrative hearings report. This is the typical report I give every month regarding outstanding appeals that the Commission received. This month's a little slightly skewed because you will see a significant, and I've submitted the report to you before today. What you will see is an increase in some of the hearings, and that's because of all of the various subpoena issues and the hearings that you conducted today. So the bureaus received a total of 12 brand new hearings, or appeals rather, and you can see that some for medication, some are improper transfers. The 8 failure to complies are in there. Those matters were sent to legal, and there are 7 matters that have been scheduled, that were previously sent to the legal office. Those matters have been scheduled, but not yet conducted. You will see 7 medication cases. The next you will see that hearings conducted and awaiting hearing officer, it's a total of 4. That means those hearings were conducted and now we're just waiting for the proposed report. We have a total of 5 adjudications which you issued today. And there are a total of 9 appeals in the Commonwealth Court, including Mr. Lerman, Rojas, Racing Gambit, Sarissa, and these 5 individuals that were here today. And there is 1 federal district matter. We are awaiting Judge Kane's written opinion.
Okay, questions? Comments? Great, George, thank you. Okay, old business. Ashley and Brett and Tom for the marketing communication update. Welcome. It's good to see you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm going to start the marketing update with the Standardbred Horse Sale. This year was a great success for the Standardbred Horse Sale and the harness racing and breeding industry. The sale saw a 1.5 gross increase compared to the 2016 sale. Over 1,500 horses were sold for $53 million. The mixed 2-day sale was up 22%, with 660 horses bought for $19.5 million. The U.S. buyers spent more than $38 million during the yearling and mixed sales, and foreign buyers spent more than $13 million. So it was a very nice increase, and I was there. I got to experience for the first time, and I really enjoyed it.
What was the percentage?
For the total percentage, I can tell you. I have it in my notebook if I could give it to you.
Jim, do you know?
What was the question?
What was the percentage increase in the sales?
About 5%.
But that was over a year that was not good last year because of other issues.
Well, last year was good, the year before was good.
That was 2 years.
Okay, that's right. I'm getting that old.
That's right.
Yes.
No, the sales were very good, in particular the foreign buyers and the big influence.
Thank you.
The marketing research RFP update. On November the 8th, the Marketing Advisory Committee saw presentations and conducted interviews with the 3 proposals that were submitted. to do the marketing research for the statewide marketing campaign. After we finished doing the interviews, we had a small discussion between us, and each member then scored the proposal and the interview. What I did after that was I compiled all the scores from the members and averaged them and took them back to our scoring committee, which consisted of me, Tom, and Brett. I gave them the feedback that the advisory committee had on each presentation before we scored. And then we also had a scoring for the small business portion of the proposal. That is scored by the Department of General Services. And what we scored the vendors on, or the proposals on, was the vendors' understanding of the project, their qualifications, personnel qualifications, soundness of approach, and available facilities. So the final score of the advisory committee, the scoring committee, and the Department of General Services ended up concluding that the Savvy Group had the highest score. And I have given you today the Savvy Group's proposal for you to review. I set it next to your book, so I got the final score yesterday afternoon. And I'd like to give the advisory committee's recommendation to the committee, or to the commission, to award the marketing research RFP to the Savvy Group.
I will make that motion.
What was the motion?
So
I'll second it.
it's the recommendation to move forward with awarding the RFP to the Savvy Group after the final scoring.
So that would be the concurrence of the marketing advisory group plus the technical scoring
Yes.
committee being yourselves, right?
Yes, they all came up with the same, the Savvy Group weighed out way higher than the other one.
So we have a motion to award the Savvy Group, which is based in Pittsburgh, I believe, the proposal, or the bid, accept their bid?
Yes.
Okay, and second to that, right, we have motion, Commissioner Rogers, Commissioner Brenheiser from the second. Discussion of the proposal?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, unfortunately, I'm not in a position to vote yes or no because I just got it. And I haven't even reviewed it. So, I mean, I know there was a scoring, but I think I owe some responsibility as a commissioner to review the document before I vote. I didn't get it in advance. And I'm not feeling comfortable to even vote on something I haven't even read yet. If you're going to go forward, I probably would abstain, but I would propose that we give a little time to review this.
I apologize about that. We are just a little bit behind, and we wanted to get the research done as quickly as possible. I did not get the final scoring from the Department of General Services until yesterday afternoon, or I would have had it to you sooner, and we were just needed that final piece before I could present anything.
Okay, further discussion or thoughts on Commissioner Rogers?
We've been pushing to get this
Yes.
moving forward for quite some time.
I
And
agree.
I understand your concerns, but I think at this point we need to put our confidence and our faith in the committee that has worked for us, go forward on it.
Can I just offer one piece? If we go back to the inception of this, Commissioner DeMunda, you were one of the proponents that everything funneled through the advisory committee, okay? And the advisory committee was made up of shareholders, stakeholders that represented all facets of the industry: breeding, racing, thoroughbred, and standardbred. And we're trying to work within those parameters. Sometimes they become unwieldy, but we're trying to work. In this case, all the parties that you trust with the recommendation, meaning the advisory group, the three of us up here, and DGS are strongly recommending this. I urge you to reconsider for the simple reason that we need to get the research project off the ground in order to get the creative done, in order to fill out the timeline as we go farther.
Tom, I thank you, and I will accept that, and I understand that. What I would ask is, don't put us in this position. Let's give us stuff in advance. advance, so we don't get it at the time we're supposed to vote. But I understand.
Let me ask you a question. Is this thing on? Have the three of you been face to face with all these proposers?
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Redhausen.
What is the cost of this part of the advertising project?
They came in at $50,000 for the research.
Okay. And how many different groups did you interview for this places contract?
30.
I reviewed it. I think it looks very good, so I think we made the right decision.
So this is the first phase, right? So this is the research phase. Just remind us on timeline for completion of the research.
We would hope to have the conclusion and the results of the research by the beginning and the end. Goal is end of February.
Okay.
On release with the final going out to the creative on March 1st.
So this will set up for the creative, right? So we'll do a similar process of an RFP,
Yes.
right? And according to your timeline, I think it was to have that back by end of April?
Yes.
Okay. And then have a selection made for the creative, and that would be for, it's a multi-year commitment?
We have not discussed that yet.
Okay. All right.
I guess I do have, since they're doing the research, they also could be an applicant for the going forward portion.
If they have the qualifications that we set forth in the RFP for the creative, they could.
Not separating the research from who could be qualified to go forward.
Yes.
So you're not going to look at placing the creative part until you have all the research completed?
There's going to be some components of the, like the website and certain things that we're going to be able to navigate and start part of the creative. It's not going to be the brand or the look, but there's some behind the scenes nuts and bolts that need to be taken care of with like building a website takes time. So that's something we can start working on, you know, hopefully by the end of December and start working that way. So when we have the research, it's just kind of putting together the creative quickly.
So we can't really expect any creative type things happening until, say, April or?
Yeah, end of April. It's going to be mid-April, end of April.
But there has to be some projects done. I'm sure that either you can do that internally or work independently with an agency or, I mean, you know, because there's going to be some things coming up, you know, in March that I think we should probably be, you know, publicizing.
Remember this, Commissioner, there are different components to this. The piece we're referencing now is the $1.2 million piece for the statewide campaign. There's money that this commission has allocated to the 6 different groups in this process. And the advantage of having them on the advisory committee along with Ashley and so on is they've worked out a pretty good system where everybody helps everybody else. So we're not kind of in the box anymore. We can move things around. And absolutely there'll be things we want to do in February and March, and those will be projects we'll try to pick off one at a time.
And do them in-house or, you know, through the agency?
It depends on the project, Commissioner.
Okay.
Other questions or comments on the recommendation? So we have motion. Second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of accepting the recommendation for the Savvy Group for creative, the market research, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
I had
You have more?
One last piece of discussion.
Sure.
the communications plan that was presented at the last meeting. The commission requested that I give the communications plan to the marketing advisory committee for their feedback. I've included in your binders some copies of some of our committee members' feedback for you to review. Overall, it was very good. A couple areas of
Looks like this, right?
It's in the front pocket.
It's in his pocket.
In the front pocket.
In the front pocket.
we'll go, I'll answer that, Commissioner. In the last meeting, one of the issues that was discussed, obviously, was distributing this to the advisory committee, which we did. The second issue is we went back and took a look at the timeline and tried to analyze if there was ways to truncate or shorten the process. After internal meetings, we've come to the conclusion the process is the process, but what we've decided, Brett and I, is we will stay on top of this. If we have any issues with timing or things aren't going out expeditiously, we'll come back right to the commission.
So what I'm hearing you say is that it didn't change, but you'll try to make it work for efficient.
That's correct.
Okay, any other questions, comments on marketing communications for Ashley, Tom, Brett? Very good, thanks. And one of the other items of old business, the Equine Coalition letter. Pete? Welcome. Now, who's presenting?
Jan Bugman.
Jan.
Pete Peterson had to leave a little early because of the length of the meeting went long. So he apologizes. So good afternoon. Again, my name is Jan Bugman. I represent the Pennsylvania Equine Coalition. I'm happy to address questions. I know you're getting long in the tooth here in the afternoon. I will take a brief. But last month, I submitted a letter on behalf of the Equine Coalition regarding the independence of the marketing director for the commission. And I guess there were some concerns that were raised that there were impediments in place to kind of efficient and timely press releases and communications that would benefit the commission, because there was an understanding that they had to go through the Department of Agriculture's process as well. So what we did as a firm was look into really the nature of that, and whether that position itself, the communications director, the marketing director, is indeed should act independent of the Department of Agriculture. And the letter, I'm not going to read it verbatim, but we looked at really the Racehorse Industry Act itself, which includes the word independently, and it talks explicitly about marketing and promoting horse racing. Just for understanding the purpose and the structure, obviously the commission is housed within the Department of Agriculture. It's not unusual. There's a lot of examples out there like that. However, there's case law that I included in the analysis in the letter that will show that when it's set up like that, depending upon the factual circumstances, here being the actual act itself that talks about the independent nature of this position, is that a sub-agency that is housed within an executive agency still acts independently of that overarching executive agency for certain things. Clearly here, the marketing and director and the communications position here, I think the act itself talks about it. The administrative code recognizes this, and I've included some case law in there. There was a kind of a high-profile case regarding the Office of Open Records and Mr. Arneson, when Governor Wolf tried to terminate his employment, and the Commonwealth Court looked at that situation and said, even though the Office of Open Records was set up underneath the Department of Community and Economic Development, DCED, much like the Commission is set up under the Department of Agriculture, the OOR was still independent. In other words, the governor could not come down and, in that circumstance, terminate Mr. Arneson from his executive director position. And in that analysis, much of which is in the letter that I've set forth, it demonstrates that the marketing director position, if you draw the similarity to what we're dealing with here, needs to be independent. And what's refreshing here is I sit here and we had just the last old business, and your marketing director came up with the two bureau directors. That's the way it should be. When I look at the plan, this is what I'm a little concerned about. I don't know if I have the correct plan in front of me, but the plan that I have, again, I don't know whether this is an updated plan or not, but if you look at page 8, at least of my plan, it talks about using the social media page of the Department of Agriculture. Here, I think the recommendation from the Equine Coalition, based upon our research, our legal research, is that in order to be independent, And to demonstrate that the commission is independent, you should probably have your own social media page. And maybe that's in the works. Twitter feeds, Facebook pages, indeed your own homepage. Indeed, the commission should have its own homepage. When we talk about the process and procedure, we certainly would, based upon, again, upon the research, we would strike out the fact that the Department of Agriculture has to approve any releases. That could be handled by the Bureau directors and the commission on approval. We don't believe that, again, based upon the research, that it's quite frankly, it's inefficient to have to do it that way. Again, the concern was that we weren't getting out timely press releases because we had to go and seek authorization. So I'm happy to answer questions about the particular letter. I understand that I submitted this letter last month, and there may have been some communications and discussion about this particular topic. But again, the other thing about this, I think that Equine Coalition understands that this is kind of a work in progress. And I don't think that they're coming down harsh on anybody for trying to get through this process. We're just trying to help define the parameters that I set forth in my letter of where we're at as this continues to evolve.
Great, thank you. Questions or comments from the Commission? Okay, Commissioner Bunda.
Thank you very much. I tell you, I was hoping that what I heard today wasn't here. It seems like they're not going to change that procedure. Just trying to work with it better. I've also heard that there hasn't been many problems lately, so why change it if it's now working rather than before? That's disappointing to me. I think we should have, I personally believe we should have a procedure where we do have our own social media and web page, and also that I think we should have a system which you just kind of suggested that we keep it within the commission, bureau heads, and actually and only go to them, only go to the Department of Ag, not automatically, but only if the branch has things they need to. I've been told that that's probably not going to happen, and I am concerned about that. I don't know, I wasn't part of the discussion that led to that decision, but I'm concerned about that. And I think that as a horseman's representative, and since the coalition consists of horsemen, I would request that we proceed to investigate this more, and the fact that we have to get an independent opinion about it, because I don't think it meets the needs of the people that I represent. That's my opinion.
Well, just to build upon that, Commissioner Bunda, the act is clear that it's to independently regulate not only horse racing, but the marketing of horse racing. So to your point, I'm not quite sure what the reasoning was to use the process or stay with the process that's in place. Maybe there's some logic there, I don't know. But the Equines Coalition position would be, at least, let's not make that an impediment. If there's a concern that it may become one, there certainly is authority to change that process.
Other comments? Questions? Commissioner Bretheiser?
I don't think it's been ruled out that there's not a possibility of maybe creating an independent website and some of the things that would be designated specifically for the commission. At least during our early discussions, I don't think we ruled that out, have we?
It was not ruled out. I mean, I guess, first of all, just thanks for the memo, and there's certainly some good guidance here that, this is evolving. The work in progress is an accurate statement. Written at a time when we were sort of front side, probably struggling a little more with just what the structure was, decision making, and was set in motion by an incident at the York Fair, and just whether that was a true measurement of actually process or not. Personal view, not, but it also helped to define a little bit what we are doing. So of the last month, and this was a question to both Brett and Tom, every request that has come through the commission to them, to the department, has been approved. There hasn't been an issue at all. So it's a little bit, we're trying to look at how does it really function, how do you do this, how do you make it work? We don't want to be the impediment. At the same time, I would say that there's probably value in the access of the social media networks that are established right? The distribution channels of agricultural communications that are already established. So part of it is what can you use that's already built within the department in furtherance of what the commission wants to achieve in its marketing, right? I think that's an open question. To step away completely, be independent, I think some thought has to go into it. How do you rebuild some of the structure that's already in place, and why do that if that's already existing for use, right? But it really comes down to, I think, our discussion earlier, to Commissioner Brenheiser's point, it really comes down to Brett and Tom, the sort of direct supervisors of the marketing director, and having a channel through them to, if there's an issue, to the department. Otherwise, it's not an issue, right? Number one. Two, I think within, as we heard in the marketing plan, there is still some question of, on the actual marketing, when you get past the research, the creative, the establishment of a website and some of those things that are embedded in the proposal. I think that's still an open question. I mean, what does that look like? Who manages that? Is that a direct commission managed website? Is that going to be a third party? I think that's an open question, to be very honest about it. So I don't know, I mean, I'll let others weigh in here, but I would just, from my perspective, the last month or so, the process has worked. Brett, Tom, you guys are managing the thing, so.
Over the last month, the process has been working. As I said when I was up before in front of the commission, Brett and I will continue to manage work with Ashley, and if there are issues, we'll raise the issues.
Yeah, I think that's an accurate statement. The last 30 days has been much better. Social media posts, press releases, they've all got out in a timely manner.
Well, just briefly, I just wanted to go back to how this all started in the negotiations for Act 7. And that was specifically one of the things that was on the table from the coalition and the individual horsemen's associations and breed associations was an independent commission. The issue of the marketing director here being held back somewhat at one instance, and I'm hearing now that it's much better. But I still would like for this commission to consider itself as an independent commission. We are agriculturally motivated and attached to agribusiness, but this commission, I believe, could do so much more on its own and independent, and not just on social media, on some of the other issues that we have. And I just wanted to remind everybody of those days when we were in the Capitol for hours upon hours, that one of the promises was that the commission would be an independent commission. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make one last comment. I think what's being forgotten here, which got me kind of pushing this, is that this money for marketing is coming from the horsemen. Okay? And if we distributed all the money to the horsemen's groups and they hired Ashley, they wouldn't have this issue. It's because this process was set up to have a statewide program that we had this issue. If we just distributed all the money, they could hire Ashley or somebody like that and say, you know, we'll give out press releases. It's only because you got the money to begin with, and it's some of it's being used for through the state marketing, that we have this problem. And I think you've lost the fact, in my opinion, that this money that you're working with comes from the horsemen. And I think that's why I'm so strong about this, because I think we should respond to their concerns about the efficiency and the timing of getting press releases out and other information about the industry. And that's what.
So can I just follow up on that? Our understanding, it's in the letters under 9313 that the 1% pays for, there's 1% taken and paid for the marketing position. And again, under the Act, if you look at the reimbursement phase, if we're still including the Department of Agriculture to review and kind of approve things, are they coming back and then asking for reimbursement for those shared expenses? I don't know, because I don't know what those records look like. But in other words, there's a way to create some economic efficiencies here as well, to have an independent marketing position and have that process other than involving agriculture, which may also be economic as well.
Other comments?
I mean, that brings up a point. I mean, he has a good question here. Are are we paying the agricultural department for their feedback and their assistance with these projects?
I don't think there's a nickel, actually, that goes into this marketing from the department or cost.
This list of shared services.
Yeah,
That's
it's-
studied yet.
Yeah, it's not in there. The communication at all is not in there. So, yeah. Okay. All right. Appreciate the letter feedback. Thank you. We'll take that under advisement. Thank you. Okay. Industry reports. Brett?
Okay, section E, industry reports, go to the horsemen, folks, Kim Hankins or Sam Beagle? No. Okay, Michael Belezzi? No? Okay, moving along to the breeders, Jim Simpson?
The report was the sale results.
Okay, very good, thank you. And then lastly, Brian Sampantello.
Just two quick items. I put in the Mayor's Bread report from the Jockey Club, and you'll notice that there were only 3 states or provinces in the top 10 that had an increase. Pennsylvania was one of them at 15%. Maryland, which we try to we look at as far as a competitor, as far as breeding is concerned, was down 15%. So it's the first time that our Mayor's Bread was up over the past 9 years. So again, a great step for breeding in Pennsylvania. The other thing is, with sadness, that I tell you that El Padrino passed away at Northview, Pennsylvania. He was Mid-Atlantic's top freshman sire. In fact, when our directory comes out, he'll be on the front cover of our directory, but I just wanted to let you know that. Okay, any questions?
Questions, comments? Brian, thank you.
Okay, moving along to public comment, we've got one person registered for public comment, will be Dr. Langlois.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks again for allowing me to offer a little bit of public comment. Just a couple of things that I wanted the Commission to consider. The first is, I'm not sure if this happens in PA, but after most race day, stewards will write out minutes. So if there are any inquiries or disqualifications, things of that nature, they will write those down in minutes as to exactly the rationale behind their decisions. I would ask that those minutes be made available on the website for fans and handicappers to potentially look over. If that can be done, it is done in other racing jurisdictions. The other thing that I would ask the Commission to look towards doing in the future is hiring an equine medical director. I think this will go a long way towards helping the integrity and the view of racing in Pennsylvania to have actually a medical director that is overseeing the health and welfare of the horses in PA that are on the tracks. The next two things, one, I would strongly ask that the Commission either decide yes or no if they are going to mandate that the 2 remaining tracks, thoroughbred tracks in Pennsylvania, go through the NTRA accreditation process. This is something that I've been bringing up constantly. I was told the NTRA was going to come up and give a talk on this. It apparently has not happened. It's just a simple yes or no if the Commission wants to go through with this. I realize it is a long process, but getting them started will go a long way towards improving the view and integrity of racing in PA.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
I'm understanding that Parks is in that process.
But the other 2 tracks have not. What I'm asking is I'm not asking about Parks. I'm asking about the Commission coming forward. It was done in West Virginia. West Virginia's Racing Commission made a ruling that said all thoroughbred tracks have to be NTRA accredited. I understand Parks is in the process, which I think is great. What I'm asking is for the Commission to rule or make a regulation, make a rule, if they can, and they may not be able to do it, I don't know, that the other 2 tracks, Presque Isle and Penn National, follow through and start the NTRA safety and accreditation process. As I said when I first brought this up, Pennsylvania, now that Parks is doing it, but Pennsylvania stuck out like a sore thumb. They were the only track in the state in the area that did not have NTRA safety and integrity accreditations. And that goes a long way towards what people look at. And I'm speaking of this from a fan and from a fan's perspective and from a handicapper's perspective.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I would ask that staff look at other jurisdictions and make a recommendation whether we should consider that or not. That's an issue.
That's fine. I mean, I think we've talked about it several times. I mean, to be honest, I'm not sure where it was left. I mean, I thought each of the tracks voluntarily were going to do that without commission action. This was my memory, but we'll come back to you.
Just two other quick comments. One, just in regards to the marketing committee, and this may actually be happening, I don't know, but all the stakeholders were not included on that committee, because to my knowledge, a fan or a handicapper was not part of that committee. So it's just a little bit of a false statement to say that every stakeholder in the industry was part of that marketing committee, because they weren't. So I hope that they would look towards a fan or a handicapping group for further input as far as that goes. And the final comment that I would just have, I understand that the commission is currently looking at something in regards to an incident that happened in Penn National with a delay in veterinary care being able to be gotten for a horse that had broken down. When I made my first set of comments at the first meeting years ago, or last year, I brought this very thing up, that if we cannot ensure the health and welfare of the horses that are racing on our tracks, we shouldn't be racing. So what I'm asking is, I understand the ambulance issue and whatever the investigation, returns is up to them. What I'm asking also is that the commission makes a rule that every race has a veterinarian in a vehicle of some kind that follows the horses around the track. There is absolutely no excuse for it not to happen. There is absolutely no excuse for that type of a delay to get to a horse in distress. 8 minutes, if that is truly what happened, is inexcusable for a horse to sit there in distress after breaking down on the track. And all I'm asking is that it is done, again, in other jurisdictions, that there is what they call either a chase truck or a vet vehicle that follows the horses around every race. So this way, if there is a problem that a horse breaks down, that horse can be gotten to and dealt with within a minute in most instances. A delay of 3 to 5 minutes, and we have seen it a couple of times happen now this year, is unacceptable. It's just, it should not happen. And I'm just asking again that the commission just comes down and makes a regulation that says this is what's going to happen at the racetracks. And if you can do it, great. If you can't, I mean, I don't understand why anybody would be against something like that, but unless there's a legal reason, you could not mandate that of the tracks. But this is something that needs to be addressed. And just goes back to my original point. So that's all I have.
Okay, great. Thanks for your public input. All right, any other public comments? Okay, any other business to come before the commission? Just a note, the next scheduled public meeting will be here at the Farm Show, this room, December 19th, scheduled for 1 p.m. Public meeting. Okay, no final comments, a motion to adjourn, please. Okay, motion second. Everybody said yes.